So Netflix, the propaganda machine, has released a show called Adolescence, which is about a boy in high school who stabs this girl, a classmate of his, after he is tormented for being an incel. I think I haven't actually watched the show, but that seems to be the gist of what it is. This boy who looks like he's about 7 years old on the right is like bullied online, and he it affects him so much that he stabs a girl who's his classmate, which is a pretty crazy thing to make as a TV show. Um, and then the UK Prime Minister said in Parliament that he wants it to be seen by everyone in schools, and it's like important viewing. And there's been a lot of discourse around, the race of the boy and the real life incident that this was based on. Um, and it's caused a lot of controversy. I don't know. I mean, the people I've seen talk about it have been pretty negative on the whole thing. Um, from my point of view, Netflix has been a I don't. The whole point of Netflix was they wanted to have every movie on there, so you didn't have to own all the physical copies of DVDs. But almost from the get go, I was obviously always big into movies, and I looked at the Netflix movie list, and they hardly had anything, even from the start. And within a couple of years, it was all their own productions. Which, after watching a couple with housemates, because they'd just put them on, like it was just even pure brain rot, even in the pre-COVID years. So I've never really understood why people even have Netflix. So as soon as this show came out, I was just like, why the hell? Like, just even the picture there on the right, like, it's just so cold and like just it's so transparently not a real story, or like not. It's just very clearly trying to manipulate you into thinking or feeling a certain way. Um, but I don't know. Maybe people are waking up to it a bit, like just this fact that the media that we're being presented with is just so aggressive against us, and this is just it's just getting so blatant now. I don't know how, if people can't see it, like I don't really know what to say at this point. But I was actually speaking to a friend of mine who is a mother and does have boys who are a bit like not quite in high school but in primary school, and we spoke about the show because she was going to watch it, and I sort of said, "Oh, like it's just propaganda. Like you don't want to watch that. It's going to impact you in ways like you're not even really aware of." But it was a recommendation, so she had to watch it, and she watched it, and she was like, it was okay, and all this stuff. And I said, "Yeah, but how did it make you feel, or like what?" Because I hadn't seen the show, so I was trying to get to the bottom of it. And what came out from that conversation was that the show had made her fearful that she needed to be worried if her boys were going to experience this or go through this, or they'd potentially come dangerous. And it wasn't like it was this overwhelming feeling of like, oh, my boys are going to be dangerous, but it was just this nagging thought, like, is there something I need to be worried about? And I think that's, after having that conversation, I think that's what the purpose of the show is. It's just to sow this distrust in the boys of, well, I mean, I'm not in England, but in anyone who, I guess, who's watching this. But yeah, it's with this attack on men in many forms of media. It's like, well, we're going to start attacking men when they're still in school. Like, you don't know anything when you're in school, and you're already been framed as like potential murderers, and even someone who's like the mother of boys who've never done anything wrong. It's like the show is able to plant that little seed of doubt in their mind, and that's clearly what the point of the show is. And it just gets me to this idea of, I think a lot of people think that art imitates life. Like, things happen in the world. I mean, I guess with Adolescence's case, this did happen, although under slightly different circumstances, as has been discussed extensively online. But this idea that things happen in the world and then we present them as art. But I think, I don't know if it's always been this way, but certainly in our current times, it seems to be the life imitates art. So art is put up there to influence the behavior, and having a show like this, and it's just so ridiculous to see footage of the UK Prime Minister speaking about a stupid Netflix show, which is, you just I refuse to watch it. You just know it's going to be terrible. Speaking about it in Parliament as if it's like just some important issue. Like, oh my god, it's just almost unbelievable. But it's like the innocent boys of England have to, as they're just trying to learn and like get into the world, and you know, just when you're that age and your brain's developing, like when I was in school, it was like I wasn't even really thinking about like girls that much, or I don't know, like just this obsession with like male, female, and gender. It's like it's just putting these kids, like their brain, into such rigid thought processes and lines of thinking, when it's like they should be developing their brains for like higher thinking if possible, like exploring different ideas. And like, yeah, it's not even like this whole like violence thing, which is stemmed from a case that wasn't really what was represented in the show, is it's just so damaging to the culture. And yeah, like talking to my friend, like it's just going to sow this distrust amongst people unnecessarily. Like, it's just fully damaging. And I wanted to compare it to another English film, Angus, Thongs and Perfect Snogging, which is the picture on the left, which is it's sort of like a romantic comedy film for high school kids in England. And like, you know, obviously it's not the best film ever, but it's like it's at least a film. And it's it's sort of about, even though the people on the left look a bit older than the kid on the right, it's like about kids from the same age range, like the last few years of high school. And the whole movie is just so bouncy and like playful, and charming. And it has this soundtrack where, you know, it's just very lovely. Like every song's just about crushes and, you know, thinking you're in love, or just, you know, liking people. And you know, it's just very innocent. And it's like it doesn't make this big deal out of relationships or sex. It's not even like really about sex. It's just about just fondness, and yeah, like crushing on someone of the opposite sex. And when, you know, you have kids who are that age, like, you know, in their mid-teens, I guess, like it's just sort of a nice story to explore like those feelings everyone has, and it doesn't put on these expectations of like, you know, everyone has to have sex or whatever. It's just like boys and girls can just like each other. And when you put stuff like that out into the world, it's encouraging that these feelings that you have are okay. And, you know, you might not have the picturesque like swimming pool kissing scene when you're in year 9, like they do in this movie, but it's like it's not putting that fantasy so out of reach that it's unattainable, or like making something such as like a murder, which is just such a, you know, unlikely thing to happen. It's like it's focusing on the positives of this interplay between boys and girls, and how, you learn together and grow together, and encouraging that, I don't like, almost collaboration, or like, it's just nice. And it's look, it is a bit of like the classic girl fantasy where the sort of, like nice average looking girl gets with the guy who's like very attractive, a bit like Twilight, or maybe 50 Shades of Grey, or something like that. But you're allowed to have a little bit of fantasy like in your film, like and it doesn't, it explores the difference in, like, people reaching out of their leagues, and like valuing different things in a relationship and things like that. And it's I just find it a lot more healthy than, well, now we're just gonna like paint boys into this corner of like they're incels if they haven't had sex at 15. Like, not many people have had sex at 15, especially not now. So it's like, even back then, like I was, about 15 when the Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging came out. And it's like, I certainly wasn't having sex at 15, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be, it doesn't mean that I ended up being an incel for life either. Like, I don't know. And it's like, maybe if there was this like huge, um, I don't know, like outpouring of cases where this had happened, like um, the murder had happened, like because of boys being incels. Like, I think for the most part, like boys at 15, most of them are incels. Like, few might have had sex once, like maybe a couple have had a bit more than that, but it's like, it doesn't turn English boys into murderers. Like, it's just complete bullshit. And it's just devastating. It's like, why, why can't we just have this? We've gone from this culture of like, oh, we're allowed to, you know, like each other and crush on each other. And yeah, there's going to be like awkwardness and misunderstandings, but it's like, it's a culture where like you've got each other's back at the end of the day. To, we're just going, like, what chance do boys have if you're just going to paint them in this corner? And, what chance are you giving girls who are, very impressionable, if you've got, high school age girls like watching media like this, and they're just being told how bad boys are? It's like, it's such a disservice to girls as well, because they're not taught for the things that they do like in boys, and I guess the strong traits that boys and men can have, that, girls can like and be attracted to. Like, it's just telling them basically like, oh, your classmates are murderous, which is just ridiculous. And it's especially, um, at this age where, you do have those sparks, but it's like, you don't have the knowledge you have when you're older. But, and it's like, just focusing on not only the negatives, but like the complete end of the worst thing that could happen, which didn't technically really happen under the circumstances that is being presented in the fiction. Like, it's just completely irresponsible and society crushing. Um, and I do have a little personal anecdote. So when I was a bit younger, I used to go out a bit more, and if you'd ever end up at like, unfortunately, like on any kind of R&B dance floor, or like something like that, or even if they were playing pop music or something, one thing I picked up is very astute, is that, girls when they're out dancing, and, it's not like a house or a techno club where it's really about the, the beats and the sounds of the music. Like, whenever it's any kind of dance floor where the main part of the music are the vocals, not for the sound, but for the lyrics, like the message of the song, it's it's amazing how impressionable girls act based on the lyrics of the songs. So I just remember, like, anytime any kind of Beyonce song, like any kind of like independent woman, like, don't need a man, like that kind of vibe of a song. It's like that's a really good opportunity to like go and get a drink or talk to your friend or just chill out for a bit because the girls are all gonna stand around in a circle, and if you try and approach or talk to them in that time, they're just gonna sing the lyrics of the song like in your face, basically. And it's not really personal. It's just what they're being told to do by the song, and so that's what they do. But if later on a song comes on that's like perhaps has a more sexy vibe or is positive in terms of the interaction between men and women, and it's like then that's when you go and talk to the girls that you want to talk to because they're singing the song and they're into it, and then it's like then they're gonna want to dance with you because it's what the song is saying, and it's like I think when I saw that, it, like obviously took a while to click, and then I was like, oh my god, like a lot of people like it's just very impressionable, like, and they hear certain music. It's like the um book High Fidelity, like the opening line, what came first, the music or the misery? And you know, conventional wisdom would say like, oh well, the misery came first, and then like you have the music to soothe your pain, which is true. But then the other side of that is, yeah, is it these thousands of hours we've spent listening to these miserable songs about heartbreak and everything, like that actually makes us more upset? And I think there's a ton of truth in that. And looking at the way obviously movies for the last 10 plus years have been awful. But yes, Netflix shows, and when like they don't, there's no even movie craft. Like, look, I haven't watched Adolescence, but Angus Songs and Perfect Snogging. It's not the best film ever, but it's just a nice film. There's like jokes. Like it feels like you're watching a movie. And then things like I think the UK Prime Minister he talked about Adolescence as if it were a documentary. And it's like, because that's how these shows feel now. It's like even like Severance, which I think is very overrated, is it has that same feel to it. Like it's this cold, like it just holds your attention, but it's like there's just nothing happening like in the show. It has some ideas, fair enough, but it's borderline documentary, and it's like Adolescence. It's like you haven't not exactly like we've brought in Kubrick um, back from the grave to film this like masterful piece of storytelling. It's like bloody anyone could have filmed this. It's like like one of those work safety video requirements, like, and that's the feel of the media we have. So it's like if everything you're going to have is so cold, you're going to take away anything that's artistic or fun or playful or just nice music and replace it with this like sterile, like refrigerated, um, just PSA that you know boys are bad. Like, what do you think is going to happen? You're doing a complete disservice to the boys of your country and to the girls as well because they're being told that their counterparts are evil and are going to do bad things to them, which is just not the case. Like obviously, look, bad things do happen, but for the most part, you know, boys and girls, men and women meant to be together. And shows like Adolescence, it's going to make that harder and harder. So yeah, it's I think just with how rapidly things in the world and things in the media like are declining, it's interesting to look back, 10, 15 years ago to see a film for a similar age group and just the tonal difference and like if you were a young person watching either film, like what you would feel about the world after watching it and how you would act and interact. There's this big problem. People are becoming more withdrawn, all into their phones, and it's sometimes it's hard to blame them given how fearful the media makes people. Why would you want to interact with the world if you think every person you interact with is going to be a knife wielding murderer? But anyway, thanks for listening.